This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store. Sat here on Zoom this Tuesday afternoon with Mr. James Frewin, sort of donning up the PFL here in the UK. We're going to go into everything. First things first. First impressions go, they're good. We've had a little chat about chess off recording. We're ready to jump into it.
Yes, sounds good, bro.
Look, let's talk a little bit about your background. How did sort of everything come about? Were you always involved in combat sports? Obviously, we know the PFL is something that's coming sort of with tenacity over the last couple of years, especially what we've seen so far in 2023. How did it all come about for you yourself?
So for me, I've always been into combat sports. I fell in love with mixed martial arts back in 2006, 2007, which feels like a long time ago, but was definitely one of the early adopters in the UK. I love my football, but I fell in love with the sport of mixed martial arts and everything that came with it. So I studied the business side as well as enjoying as a consumer the early days of Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, moving into the Michael Bisping era and beyond. So yeah, always been passionate about it and have worked in sports best part of 13, 14 years.
Well, as I said, obviously the PFL is something that we're seeing loads about in the media currently, especially this year. For you, when this project was first sort of, I imagine, explained to you and everything put forward, must be exciting. Obviously, there is a market in the UK now. You know, we've only got a couple of UFC London events, or however many there are over here in the UK. There are obviously other companies, etc. But it is a big market to expand, and especially with the new broadcasters like DAZN, who you guys have got to deal with, which we'll go into. But I imagine the project was something that sort of spoke itself to you. It didn't really need any selling.
100%. I think when you look at who's behind the project, the chairman and the co-founder of the PFL, great guys, visionaries, and really looking to really advance and grow the sport. I think that's the difference here, right? We are professionals across broader sports, entertainment, technology, and ultimately on a mission to deliver a great product for the fans and for the fighters. And I think out the gate, just on that, I think for us it's about creating a system in the sport that doesn't exist today, and I don't think it exists in boxing either, where you have a true sports system where fighters competing in Europe or Africa or the Middle East can join the PFL and develop their careers fighting on a regular basis with a true pathway to becoming a world champion in the PFL. So I think that for me was the big hook is the vision and the vision to advance and grow the sport. And then combined with the individuals, as I say, who are behind this, who are, great people. Pete Murray, the CEO of PFL, comes from the NFL and Under Armour and other organizations, and for him to come over into the MMA space and build an expert team to, as I say, become the number two in just 4 years, and with the vision of becoming a co-leader with the UFC is really exciting. So for me, it was a yes straight away.
Obviously, everyone's always spoke about the UFC as a top dog, but now we are seeing more competition and more sort of, I suppose, like fighter pay is something that's always being brought up at the minute, and etc., which we can go into. The deal with DAZN, obviously, we know they've got their deal with Matchroom Boxing. They've got the Misfits. If you look at territories in Europe and around the world, they've got sport, whether that be from combat sports to football, golf, etc. Obviously, moving towards being a giant in this space of streaming sport and something that it looks like almost is the future. I imagine that's probably a bit of a no-brainer, and also the access that it can give to, especially now when we see Jake Paul saying, look, he's coming over to the PFL because there's a proper project that makes sense for him and makes sense for fighters. People see that they've got their boxing subscription or etc. They're going to want to be able to dabble and have a look at the PFL as well.
Yeah, I think the PFL is attracting the attention from broader media, but also on the business side. We're working with great partners, whether it's sponsors, whether it's media companies. In the US, we're side by side with the UFC on ESPN, And then outside of the US, you know, we spent a lot of the time last year partnering with great distribution networks, and you know, DAZN, I've got nothing but good things to say about those guys. You know, they've been at it a while. You know, their vision is to become a global destination for sports. You know, they've been very successful across Europe and in the UK, and they wanted to step into MMA. So you know, the timing was good. And you know, we've been blown away by their ambition, their creativity. You know, they think like a traditional sports broadcaster, but they also take it one step further, right, creatively in terms of content. So as we think about building the PFL brand, they're the perfect partner for us moving forward. So we're excited to work with them and you know, complement what they're doing, as you say, in football and also in boxing.
You've got a show, Newcastle, on the 25th of March. I imagine this will be just one of the dates that you guys are looking to get out over here in the UK. Now, is that the plan, expansion into different territories and realizing that this isn't just a market that can flourish in America? Obviously, that is something that will be pushed, but also about over here, you know, MMA is something that's massively growing in the UK, but almost never really had the grassroots level 10, 20 years ago. Now it's something that's starting to emerge. We're seeing more classes, more groups from a grassroots level. Do you feel like this is what's needed to expand the sport in the UK?
100%. I think, you know, Charlie, for us, right, we're planning to launch PFL Europe on March the 25th out of Newcastle. We chose Newcastle because it's got such a long, rich heritage in combat sports, whether it's boxing or mixed martial arts. And we felt that it was the perfect place to start. We will do 4 events in Europe this year. We'll move from Newcastle to Berlin in early July. We'll be in Paris late September, and then Dublin, you know, which is a real hotspot for mixed martial arts right now, with our European Championship taking place there in early December. What I can tell you is we're committed to advancing and growing the sport, which means that we will have the very best athletes, male and female, competing in PFL Europe, and that will be 4 events this year. You know, and we've got a plan to scale that up to, you know, 4, 6, 8, 10 events over the next 4 years. So absolutely trying to you know, offer up and provide more premium you know, MMA in a market in the UK and Europe that's just exploding right now, thanks to the great work UFC have done and others, right? Cage Warriors, Bellator. But we've got something different, and we've got a different approach, and you know, it's going to be exciting for fans to have more events in their time zone.
I imagine you yourself, as someone who grew up a big mixed martial arts fan and someone that's always sort of had an eye on it, to now be part of the project and being able to make it happen, make it a reality in Europe, that must be something that excites you and also motivates you and wants you to sort of gives you that aspiration to provide even more back.
100%. I think we are extremely passionate about the sport, right? And you know, we've shown in a very short period of time, you know, the capabilities of the PFL, and that's why we're starting to attract major talent as well. And I think you know, to be a part of that, to be a part of influencing and advancing and growing the sport, it's something that I've always wanted to do. And yeah, the timing's perfect. We're working with great partners. You know, we've built a fantastic roster, which will get released very soon as well. And yeah, I can't thank the PFL enough for that opportunity, to be honest.
Well, on the PFL, I sort of want to touch on Jake Paul and Nikisa signing. Something I noted from listening to Ariel Helwani the other day, it wasn't an MVP thing as such, but it was just those two, which I suppose also allows further collaboration down the line. But Jake Paul, someone who's very vocal on social media, but someone who has campaigned and petitioned for things to improve, the treatment of the fighters to improve in combat sports and mixed martial arts as a whole. I imagine to have someone like that away from sort of the funny and social media aspect, but someone who does care for the fighters, and to have him on board as an ambassador, someone that you guys can work with as a company. Nikisa as well, very smart businessman behind the scenes. That can only bring positives, right?
Yeah, agree. I mean, it's an exciting time for us. It's an exciting time for Jake. I think, look, number one, the partnership with Jake Paul illustrates the PFL's capabilities on a global basis across the board, including, attracting top talent in the MMA world. And the second part is about combining our capabilities, with Jake's, right? We talk about Jake, as a influential, voice, around things like fighter pay. And he's going to use his voice and his platform to become more of an advocate for combat sports in general. But obviously, in the first instance, PFL, and he's signed with us exclusively in MMA, which is a testament to where we're at as a global brand.
On fighter pay as a whole, obviously it's something that's always been sort of largely debated in mixed martial arts, and something that I suppose is fairly difficult because the UFC have always sort of taken that first foot forward and always been a little bit ahead of the target audience. Obviously, I know you're able to cooperate with them, etc., and share broadcasters with them, but obviously there are still things that are going to need to be perfected. And I suppose when you're able to come across as a brand, whether that be in territories like we say in Europe and over in the States as well, it allows fighters as well, which is very important to be able to gain the trust of fighters when trying to launch something special. I think that's what you believe you're showing there.
Yeah, look, I think as it pertains to Jake, his views and his values really line up with the PFL's views, right? I keep mentioning it, but we're here to advance and grow the sport and everything that comes with, right? So that starts with the athletes. We're here to partner with the athletes. We're here to benefit the athletes. That is why we are here, right? So I think that's a big part of why Jake's working with the PFL and why that makes so much sense. But more broadly, I think if you speak to athletes or you listen to interviews of PFL athletes, they speak to that, right, around how the PFL is a great place to work and to fight, and we take good care of them. So as it pertains to Jake, it's the perfect combination, but more broadly, that's something we take really seriously. So I think more to come on that.
Let me ask you about Francis Ngannou. I suppose I can quiz you here a little bit personally. Like I say, my knowledge on mixed martial arts isn't where it probably could be. Obviously making a very bold decision to leave the UFC, one that sort of was denied about a little bit on social media. People weren't sure if it would happen. I think there was an offer for him to become one of the highest paid heavyweights in UFC history, or the highest paid in UFC history. What does this mean moving forward? Obviously, companies like yourself, the PFL, and other companies will look to sort of get some form of signature or cooperation with him moving forward. But what sort of message does it show to combat sports fans?
Yeah, look, I think there's never been a better time to be, an elite world level athlete across all of combat sports, boxing, MMA as well. I think, look, as it pertains to the PFL, we've firmly established ourselves as the #2 global MMA promotion across all metrics this year, right? After just a few years, it's been something that we're really proud of. And as I say, we're poised to become a co-leader. So when we think about attracting the best talent, of course, I can't go into specifics with you on any individual, but I think the PFL is on all top mixed martial artists radar in terms of a real second option or alternative if you're in the UFC or any other organization. So I think more to come on that, and you can see the direction of travel, whether it's Jake, among others. So we'll hopefully have some exciting news to break very soon.
Look, James, thank you for taking the time to speak to us and sort of show us your vision moving forward. I imagine we'll catch up again. Just final word from you, obviously, on this expansion of Europe. Where can everyone? Obviously, we know it's now on DAZN. First show Newcastle, 25th of March. Like you say, just an opportunity for you to be able to push it more forward in these European territories and allow it to also grow on a more grassroots level as well, and giving the sport the publicity that and access, I suppose, it's not always given.
Yeah, look, March 25th will be the first event of PFL Europe. It'll be PFL Europe 1. March 25th, Newcastle. I think in terms of what you can see from us, you're going to see a roster of exceptional talent, unbeaten top MMA athletes, all competing in one league, right? Which means the great fights are going to get made. We're going to be, putting on events on a regular basis, in time zone, and we're going to be creating some really strong content around that. So it's a great time to be an MMA fan in the UK, and we can't wait to contribute to that.
James, top man, thank you for speaking to us at Boxing Social.